Hey Dina,
Hi.
how
Hello.
you
Hello, Josef.
doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. How are you? Good night.
Fan- Fantastic. Good morning.
So we are here in different continents and we'll be recording today our podcast, Interscaler.
Exciting.
Yep. Would you like to introduce yourself before we
Yeah,
start?
Joseph Lapko, Strategic Connective Solution. I'm recording from Tucson, Arizona, United States.
So I am Dina Goldman Altura. I'm the CEO of Business Boss. Basically, we do strategic marketing. That's what we will be also speaking about. I will be speaking about in this podcast. And I'm recording from Jerusalem. What will you be speaking about in this podcast?
I will speak about business development, international connection, international network, team building, team operation, hopefully some fun topics for some of our audience.
It's definitely going to be fun because there's a lot of things to learn and there's a lot of interesting in things that we can implement as well. I would like to start from a question that might sound a little obvious, but do we really need to speak about this? Do we really need to talk about this? Because I'm pretty sure that everyone who are listening to us right now are quite aware that marketing any product from to another country or another continent is obviously needs we they'll obviously need to do some adjustments. So isn't it kind of just understood?
Well, I think we're living in a global opening market. We see more and more that the world is so tiny in one hand, and we can interact and do business with anybody around the world. But in the same time, we are so different, and the markets are so different, and the geographical areas are so different, and the focus is so needed. And it's so much to talk about the differences, about the opportunities, and about what's common and what's maybe very different, and how the difference can be very painful if you don't do the right homework.
So I can relate to that. And yeah, I'm also trying to answer my question here basically. But yeah, there is a difference. We're all obviously aware of the difference, but how much it really affects marketing, how much it really affects entering another market and understanding that market, and how much time we really need to put into studying and thinking before we go all in this agile time that we just want to move fast and break things and learn while we move very, very fast ahead. So there is a very dark side to this kind of understanding in psychology. We'll kind of mention that today. And this is what we're here for because both of us are living in countries we were not born in. We speak three languages at least, right?
Yeah,
And I think part of what we do and what we just learned to do, I personally, what I learned to do since I was a child is just viewing the other side, like looking at people, looking at the cultures differently, studying them carefully, and seeing the differences. And this is what I've been doing all my life. And I made a career out of it. And I think this is more or less what you do on the strategic side, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think we in the business of people and reading people and connecting strategically between people and between businesses and between opportunities and between capital, and being sensitive and aware and knowledgeable about the differences and the comments and the needs between different markets and the different companies and the different opportunities. That's what create the magic, and that's what makes success or failure if you don't do the proper work.
Okay, cool. So I think without further ado, I would like to just dive in and hear a little more about maybe a few examples or case studies that we can show our viewers that we're not just talking about something very, very general. It's something that is very close to your hearts and minds. And even if you're not thinking about developing your business right now and going into totally different markets in different countries, please be aware that markets and market segmentations are something that might be happening also around you, around basically where you live and what you do in the same country you are. There are still different segments. You're obviously aware of that, but how you approach those segments and how you really speak to them and how you really maximize your effort. So that's something we will also try to speak about today and in the rest of the podcast. So, Joseph, would you maybe like to start with an example of a company that did not take all this into account?
Sure. This speaks to me personally because I really like coffee, and I think I just came back from Italy, and I think I drink 5, 6 cups of coffee per day. So
I'm
living
drinking.
in US, sorry, what you said?
I'm drinking tea, by the way, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm also doing that because I was born in Soviet Russia, so that's what happens. I'm listening to you. Yeah.
So Starbucks is every American, we have it in every corner, and it's part of being American. You can like it or dislike it, but Starbucks is everywhere in every urban place. And Starbucks, back in 2000, they tried to enter to Australia. I mean, Australia speaks same language as United States, and they quickly expanded to over 85 stores. However, this very strong local market, Australia, who very into a very high quality of espresso, didn't take it so well. And it took them almost 8 years, but eventually they had to close more than 61 stores. And they had major losses. They even considering taking a loan from the corporate America. And we learned that we cannot assume that one size fits all. And the approach of international market is not going to be the same.
So, okay. So, first of all, the story is crazy. We discussed this a little bit before we recorded the podcast. What really happened there? They basically moved in and started opening one branch after the other. Like, what happened there? Because I'm assuming they didn't start with 81 or how many was it branches at the same time.
Well, they grew up very fast. They didn't let the space of the organical growth. They didn't just let's teach the local community about the new coffee, about the new names. And again, Starbucks has its own, matcha, latte, grande, all their special names that you need to adopt. It needs to be very cool. The local community, we already diving into the deltas, but basically Australia, it's all about the local community. Coffee is just the excuse to have a good meeting with your friends, with your community, to kind of come and to make opportunity of communication, where Starbucks is just you order online or you grab your coffee on your way. It's all about the product and less about the experience. And it didn't fit. So they did it very fast. They didn't allow the space. B, they missed the opportunity of the right education. And C, they assumed that, okay, we're doing one size fits all. This is English names. This is English speakers. Copy and paste. It's going to be all right. And it's not.
It wasn't. It wasn't all right. Yeah, when I think about Starbucks right now, I just visited Starbucks over the summer in New York. There's this famous branch over Times Square. It's they're not even like that many chairs over there. It's just the word that comes into my mind is haste. You're on the way somewhere and you just step over it quickly. It's all very, very efficient. There's very, very little friction and you get what you want and you just run out because you just don't want to like sit down, waste your time drinking coffee, which is very much the opposite. You also mentioned Italy, right? Didn't they try to make it also in Milan?
Yeah, they did open a few branches in Milan, and they learned some of their mistakes with Milan because, again, Italy, the place of coffee and espresso and macchiato, you can't just come and take a bunch of sugar in one big cup and say, here to your face, will replace your coffee. In Milan, they learned the lessons and they did it much slower. They also put the whole process of how they grind it and how they cooking the coffee and they melting it in front of your eyes. So they tried with not a big success, but they still tried to bring the coffee experience in the aroma and the Arabic and all the parts of coffee lovers into the front of the audience versus just, hey, here's your cup, have a bunch of sugar, enjoy.
So it was, I think it was very brave of them to try and make it also in Milan, considering they kind of brought the coffee consuming culture into the United States, right? Schultz was known for that, and he had to try many times until he hit the right formula and basically convinced the American market that that's what they really need, that's what they really crave. It wasn't something that there was no success in such a on such levels before Starbucks, and it's interesting because he listened so well to the market beforehand and he managed to adjust. But when it came to international markets, something happened. I guess that's what something that happens to big companies when you have a lot of pressure to grow and you want to make it as fast as possible, right?
Well, let's admit it. Starbucks has about 30,000 branches in the world. It's a,
They know things too.
yeah, they know things are too. They just have a new CEO right now who did few success in his past in other branches like Chipotle. So time will show how Starbucks will really show themselves around the world. But they tried again in Israel, which is,
Yep.
we kind of know that story very well. Israel also loved coffee in a certain way and love the experience of coffee. And it's always funny, watch Israelis. They always in the coffees. They always in the restaurant. Like they're not working. They always around the coffee. Everything is around the coffee, which is part of the culture. And they tried. They tried to in 2003, if I don't have a mistake. They tried to go in. They started in Tel Aviv, and it didn't succeed.
It didn't take in Israel. It's very interesting. It didn't take. Also here, I don't think they did enough adjustments here in Israel. I mean, because Israel is on many levels. The culture in here is very much, I'll call it Americanized. I mean, we try to be. We try to show that we're very international, very American on some levels, but the culture here is very different. And one of the things that was very different about here and there that we like our coffee with a different flavor, a little bit, not as sweet. Also, there were many brands over here that basically it's a small market and there are a few brands here that are already making their coffee. There's Aroma, there's Al Cafe, and people are aware of them. People like them. People are used to them. So after the first excitement of wow, we have this new thing from America, kind of like came to a conclusion, they didn't manage to make it. They didn't manage to lift it off the ground. And I think it all connects on one way or the other to the same thing. Basically, customer centric marketing, right? The messages need to be more customer centered. We need to understand the locals. We need to do more localized branding, if you will, because I know that this is a crazy brand. It's an insane brand, but altogether, you have to understand who you're selling it to, and you have to make the adjustments. And it's that important. It's that obvious to all of us. But still, you can see that even examples as big as Starbucks, sometimes they move too fast. They move too fast. They break things, and the results are very, very painful.
By
So,
the way, what's your favorite coffee?
so I'm very problematic. I drink cold coffee, so iced coffee, but not the iced coffee you drink with the, Slurpee kind of version. Just ice instead of coffee. It has to be decaffeinated. As I mentioned before, I'm a problematic type. And the milk has to be almond milk. So if you invite me for a meeting, you have to have all these things together for the meeting to go well. And only 1 cup a day because it still
Wow.
really affects me. Yeah, decaffeinated still has caffeine in it. So this is how I am before coffee, by the way.
Okay. I prefer aroma coffee than Starbucks, But I have a fancy machine in my home, and I drink a lot of coffee in a very fancy way. But so let's dive in and conclude. What did we learn about Starbucks? What's the problem and the mistakes that they did? How can we learn from it? What we should do? What should our audience learn and take from the few moments we spent on this topic?
So I want to tell you something that might sound a little counterintuitive at the beginning, especially to startups who really are looking for, just putting all our chips in one place and just making it big in the United States specifically, but in other markets as well. Sometimes adding friction is not such a bad idea, and I'll explain.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? Because we're always trying to just, to make everything as efficient as possible and run as fast as possible and basically to make the process as smooth as possible. Also with our customers and also with us. We want our company to move very smoothly and we want our, marketing teams and whoever is responsible for expansion to move really fast. But this is the thing. When we are very, very agile and we run very fast and we go and try to expand into another market, sometimes we don't spend enough time to really learn the market. We just base ourselves on the beginning, on, first good numbers. And there's so many examples I can give you from so much history, including even I can go back to the famous New Coke, who based it, they didn't just, make a new Coke and lost all this money. They based it on market research, but the market research was very, very limited because they were in a haste. They were really trying to get ahead of themselves and ahead of Pepsi. So what I'm trying to say here, maybe sometimes the fact that your process in your company is just so efficient, it's not good for you. You would like maybe to try and take few steps back and say, okay, although I'm used to expanding in such a way in ABC, once I enter a totally new market, I need to understand that this thing is going to take more time because I really need to learn who I speak to. So that's like the first thing I would like to say and offer.
So
I
you
think,
mentioned research, you mentioned research, that it's very crucial. And you also mentioned that you need to give it the right organic time and the right failure time. Give it a time, give it to fail, let it grow organically and not just rush the same way you did it in one market. That's going to work for sure in the other market. I would like to
exactly.
add something on top of that. Watching the user experience. We're making so many assumptions that we know our user, and he's gonna look at it the same way we used to do it, or our people used to do it, or our culture used to do it. And you have to observe, you have to let it happen by himself. Let new users experience your product, and you will be amazed to watch that maybe they're going to use it completely different the way you think it is. They might see the value in a completely different things that you made assumption. You might be amazed how the problem you think you're solving is completely different solution than you used to think. And maybe it's going to open a completely different markets or opportunities. And the public is smart. But lastly, I want to add, you need someone local. You must have
That's
someone
what I
local. And
wanted to
it's a
say. Yeah, sorry, you continue.
Yeah, someone local is it's crucial and it's worth every penny and it's gonna give you insight that you cannot research by Google or OpenAI because the nuances on the ground, even if it's a religious group or authentic or the history or the language barrier or how things saying in the slang that not necessarily you can know, and the list of examples is endless, and that could be a crucial of your success or your failure.
So I would really like to relate to everything you said over here. Understanding the culture, understanding the people is crucial. Having somebody local that helps you out is very, very important. Obviously, we're all human and we understand each other. And but we are mistaken to think that understanding each other language-wise is the same thing as understanding each other's culture. And we also mistaken, and it's like it's a normal, it's a human thing. We mistaken to think that the way we see the world through our eyes is obviously the way that our clients are experiencing their world as well. And I think this is like one thing I teach also when I teach seminars and also when I have a meeting with my clients. I made a joke about it recently on social media, and a lot of people related to that. You are not your clients. And even if you think you can imagine, I think we need to say this humbly. We are not able to understand, to really understand how a person on the other side of the planet think. And I will take it a little further. We are not able to really understand how the person next to us thinks. And especially if we are expanding to different markets. So some things, this is what basically clients of mine are experiencing. Some things stopping to work. You start with something, you're using certain circles, you're using certain messages, and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore. What happened? There's no suddenly. There was a process that was happening there, but because you failed to notice the differences, because you failed to create a user experience that really fitted that specific market, that's what happened. That's what happened. And eventually the something that can start with a big, escalation and you think, wow, this is going to be a great success, and a year or 2 years later just to completely flop because we failed to give it more time and understand there's actually human beings around there, and there's a psychological process that we are not always aware of or understand it properly. So let's just sum it up, because I want people to listen to us to really come out with tips. You spoke about organic, or like really notice the organic movement and not only just go all in on what I already know. Would you like to expand on that before we wrap it up?
No, I think just sum it up what you said: research, organic time, local person, and user experience. That's the four output. And I want to thank our audience, and I want to invite everybody who is looking to grow and expand, who's considering to expand in different markets or already expanding. And we need help on the business development side, on the international marketing, on the international global connections, or even put your team in the right places. Would love to be your input.
Would love to be your guides in this. Would like to also connect you with the right people. And there's a reason, I think, why basically this partnership of ours is growing and developing, because we really understand the need of also being local in one place, and also understanding that there is a limit to how much we can understand, and we need somebody inside. We need people to come and give us advice that would be so important and so worth it on our way on expansion. So thanks very much for this today. And
Thank you, Dina.
yeah,
I'll
we'll
wish you
continue.
a good morning, and
Thank
I guess you
you.
will
I wish
wish
you a
me a
good
good night.
night. Yes, I will wish you a good night, and it was a pleasure. Thanks.
Likewise.
Bye.